Welcome to the Start Strong, Finish Strong podcast with Greg Weiss. In this episode, I sat down with Lynnaire Johnson, author of Linkability and New Zealand's #1 expert in LinkedIn. Mastering LinkedIn is vital for anyone looking to accelerate their careers or to market their services, and my discussion with Lynnaire was broad-reaching and full of information and useful tips. Now, I know a lot about LinkedIn, but immediately after recording this podcast, I updated my LinkedIn profile and enacted on a number of Lynnaire's recommendations. Let's get into it. Hey there, Greg Weiss here again, welcoming you to another episode of the Start Strong, Finish Strong podcast with yours truly, Greg Weiss. And I'm delighted today to have as my guest Lynnaire Johnson, who is known as New Zealand's #1 LinkedIn expert. Hi, Lynnaire.
Hi, Greg.
Delighted to have you here. I'm really excited about having you as a guest today because you've written this book called Linkability, and I've read through some things here, and given that I'm involved with coaching people who are going through career transitioning, I take them through a lot of LinkedIn things, but you've got some incredibly good strategies, and you've got 4 of them that we're going to no doubt cover off in today's podcast. So I thought what I'd do is I'd just say hi, and maybe a good way to get into this straight off is tell us a little bit about Lynnaire and how you got into the world of LinkedIn.
Sure. Well, I'm really lucky, Greg, in that I'm a writer by trade. So I'm a copywriter and I have my own business, Word Wizard. So we write websites and do content for online users. And when LinkedIn arrived on the scene with a publishing platform around about 2017 or 2018, I just grabbed it with both hands because it just played to my strengths so well. And I just fell in love with it. And I found since then that LinkedIn have put a lot of effort into making changes to the platform that really help people like me who want to share information, who want to learn from other people, and want to develop relationships with other people. And of course, that's the main thing that LinkedIn offers, I think. And it's why you and I are talking to here today, because we've developed a relationship on LinkedIn that's allowed us to get together, have a chat, and decide to have a talk.
Well, that's actually very much the case. And it's a lot of people find social media platforms really mystifying, but it really is just another way of people relating to each other, isn't it?
It is. And, I think that LinkedIn has moved beyond being social media for business. I think that that's very true, that that's what it is. But it's also a really important business tool. And from my perspective, a lot of people, whether they're in small businesses, they're moving between jobs or trying to find access into a new industry, they're not using it as well as it could be used. It's a hugely powerful platform in a lot of different ways. And because I see a lot of people not using it as well as they could, that's what really prompted me to write the book, to make sure that I could share those strategies with people so they could actually make good use of it, because it really is incredibly powerful.
Very powerful indeed. Well, I'm seeing that you're New Zealand's #1 LinkedIn expert.
And
What
sorry about the accent.
It's fine. Well, we won't make any New Zealand jokes whatsoever because you could make Aussie jokes as well.
I
Um,
could.
but what I wanted to do was I've got some questions I'd like to cover off with you today. Obviously, got a bit of a roadmap, but I do want to actually deeper dive into this because there are this book Linkability, and it says here 4 powerful strategies to maximize your LinkedIn success. But at the top end, Microsoft bought LinkedIn for a bucket load of
Huge amount
cash,
of money,
and
yes.
and since they've bought LinkedIn, what are the main changes that you've seen?
Whether or not it's directly related to the new ownership, I can't be entirely certain because LinkedIn generally changes consistently over a period of time. So the main changes that I've seen in the past 3 years are a move from the idea that LinkedIn is all about a place to put your resume or CV. It's much more than that now. It's somewhere that you can really express your personal brand. LinkedIn's also become a lot more visual. This time last year, they introduced the featured section whereby you feature media. So that's videos and images and website links and all kinds of things that you can use to showcase your skills. And that's really a game changer, I think, for people wanting to make their profiles stand out online, because previously, Greg, it was all about words. And of course, being a wordsmith, I'm not opposed to that, but I recognize that not everybody looks at and reads lots of words. They like to have visual impact when they are looking at a profile. And so I think that that's really been those are the two main things. But also something that I've noticed in the last more 6 to 8 months, which might be relevant particularly to your audience, is a move away from the experience section just being a list of your jobs. And so instead of it just being the companies that you worked for and the years that you were there and maybe a list of the things that you did, people now are moving more towards providing information about their skills or their services. If they're coaches or consultants, they might break down their experience section to their different audiences, for example. And so they would then target each section of their experience to a different audience. And that gives them an opportunity to write 300 words or so and add media for each of those services that they're providing or each of those skills that they offer. And that, I think, is a real game changer for people. So if they look at LinkedIn laterally rather than just the traditional way, then I think that that's a good way to be able to make use of LinkedIn's power.
Well, I think that's a real revelation to me because it has traditionally been a very static medium. It's been a very I've often advised people that your resume can be dynamic. Your LinkedIn's traditionally been static. You've got to pick your mark and stay with it. So it's actually really good on to see that to hear that this is actually different. But the other thing that I think is really relevant, given that we're in a post-COVID, I guess we could call it post-COVID
Hopefully.
world. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And that is that the second most used word of 2020 and now 2021 wasn't the first one is COVID, the second one is pivot. And when people are pivoting, it's not easy in a LinkedIn environment in the past to actually have a traditional resume for those that want to pivot. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the arrival of portfolio careers has
Yeah.
helped that along, Greg, as well,
Mm.
so that people can now use the platform in a different way. I was talking to a guest lecturer at Columbia University last week, and what he told me was that recruiters, this is in the United States, of course,
Hmm.
that recruiters are now asking not to have a resume or a CV, but instead looking at people's profiles on LinkedIn. Now, if you haven't got a great profile, you're not in that top 5%, and you're not really showing up well against your competitors, you're going to be out of the running before you've even got your CV on the recruiter's desk. And so I think that it's really important for people who are trying to do anything in their career to move themselves forward, that they really pay attention to their LinkedIn profile, because it's their one place online where they can really control how they appear, because a lot of people don't have their own websites, and so this can be their own miniature website, if you like. And as you say, people are pivoting into new roles, and so any help that they can get online, I think, is really important.
So I want to deeper dive into your book with 4 powerful strategies, but I also want to, you raise a really important point about, we've talked about pivoting and about portfolios, and let's try and help people who are listening to this who are going to pivot in their careers or are going to take a portfolio. So it may be that and what a portfolio for those people who are listening, portfolio career is that I meet increasing number of people who might work a day here, 2 days there, 2 days another place. And so so they've got a few things happening per week, by and large. That's a portfolio of other things, or it may be going through one contract for 3-6 months, finishing that, moving on to something completely different, and so on and so forth. So as we talk through the 4 key points of your book here in linkability, what I wanted to do was also just think if we could make it really relevant to the people who are going through career transitioning as well.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So I think then that where you need to start, the baseline for doing anything on LinkedIn is to have a really good profile. And of course, there are lots of things that you can do to make yours stand out. And we've already covered quite a few of those in terms of it being visual and having lots of information about yourself. One of the key things that people tend to forget that I see, Greg, is the power of recommendation. And so because the recommendations sit at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile, people tend to forget them, but they provide really important social proof. And whether you are a consultant, whether you are developing a profile career, whether you are transitioning into a new job, people want to see recommendations from other people. So one of the key things that is not actually in my book, because I don't talk much about profiles in the book, is to have lots of recommendations. And so that would be a key tip that I would suggest that your audience members have a think about, because it's something practical that they can do in order to get their profile up to that sort of that top 5%, if you like. Now, I think that when it comes to the different types of candidates or people that you are working with particularly, that the one thing that is common to everybody is the need to develop a wide network of targeted connections on LinkedIn. When LinkedIn first began, we all tended just to connect with anybody and everybody who invited us, which means that we've often got a network of all kinds of people, maybe all over the world even, and not necessarily those that are particularly relevant to either where we are now or what it is we want to do in the future. And so if you, for instance, are deciding you want to move into a different industry or into a different job, my top tip for that would be to target people who are already there in those industries, in those jobs, and connect with them. Follow them first, engage on their content, and then invite them to connect. Once you're connected to them, you can then develop a relationship. Send them a personal message. Tell them what you have in common or what you're aspiring to do, and try to develop a conversation with them. I find that people forget, one more thing, and then I promise I will let you say.
No, so go on. This is great. This is gold.
Is that when you're inviting someone to connect, always send a personal invitation. Don't use the default, because that really, it would be just like meeting somebody at a networking event and then giving them a business card without talking to them or developing a relationship. So that personal interaction is important.
And you know, the when you're saying connecting, I think these are important things. And so when you're looking, you said, let's go a little bit deeper on the content. So you mentioned as one of the things that people need to do is to look at the content on that person's profile and then comment, for example, or otherwise. Can you give a practical example or practical tip what people ought to do in that situation?
Sure. So when you identify someone that you want to connect with, you go to the activity section on their profile, look at their most recent posts if they're active. Then when you've had a look at a couple of posts, write some really insightful comments. Don't say, for example, great post, really enjoyed this. That's terribly, terribly boring and doesn't showcase your knowledge or your expertise at all. So share share an opinion, add to the person's post in some way by sharing some useful information that shows that you know something about this particular topic as well. And that's really useful if you're someone trying to get into a new industry or into a new job. You need to show someone that might be interested in hiring you that you are already there, that you are the person. You may not be doing the job now, but you're really capable of doing that. And so by commenting on their posts, you are going to show up, and they will see your name, they will see your headline, and they will see that you are following them and you are giving back. You are effectively giving back to them by helping their posts to get more views. And I really believe, Greg, and this is what the basis of my book's all about, is that LinkedIn is a sharing and giving platform. And if you come to it with that mindset of helping other people, then you will get out of LinkedIn way more than you ever put in.
Yes, and there's that approach which is give in order to get.
Yes, I absolutely believe in that, and I think
Yes,
LinkedIn is a good example of how that works.
yes, and often, Linaire, I find that there are people who will LinkedIn offers up the opportunity to congratulate somebody on a new career shift, on a new job, and so on and so forth. And the number of comments I get to see, which is the auto-generated congrats, I always wipe that, and I just saw you and roll your eyes.
I did, didn't
What would you say to people if you
I? I
want
would
to
say,
actually?
don't do that. If you're going to do that, do it personally. Like when you're connecting with somebody, send them a personal message, not those,
Yes.
as you say, those default suggestions that LinkedIn gives you, because that shows no effort at all.
No.
It doesn't show that you've looked at their profile or that you know anything about them at all. And it's the same with birthdays. If somebody's got their birthdays or anniversaries of their jobs turned on in their notifications, and again, don't do the bog standard minimum, Greg. That's what I'm saying, is stand out by being different and doing more. I think that's
Yes.
really probably what I mean by that, because doing the absolute minimum isn't going to show you in a great light. You're not going to stand out.
No, correct. And talking about a great light, that's what I've actually got on my head right now, is a great light. And it looks like we may have actually had are you okay, Linaire? You're back on. We had a slight glitch. So,
Okay.
Sarah, edit. So back onto it. And talking about putting in a great light, that's exactly what I got on my forehead at the moment, a great light, which basically means then that you're giving some fantastic ideas. My ideas light has come on. Also happen to have just a shiny forehead. So there we are. But these are really good tips. There are times also when people are going to say, maybe I don't want to actually have different jobs, but I want to be able to launch a new business. And that's where I think your book, and I don't want to limit it, but that's where I think this book, Linkability, really hits its strides, in that it actually is around marketing an individual personal brand or marketing a new business. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. And I think that that's where LinkedIn really lends itself to being able to assist people with their marketing for those things. Sure, it's all about helping people find new jobs, but if you are going out on your own for the first time, or you've got a side gig going on and it's part of your portfolio career or your interim work that you're doing, then I think that that's where LinkedIn is very helpful, because it allows you to show all of the different things that you can offer. You're not limited. And this time last year, I think again, LinkedIn increased the length of headlines. So you now have 220 characters, which doesn't sound a lot, but when you're putting together your LinkedIn profile headline, it gives you the opportunity to include all kinds of things, including your new business, including what else you might be doing, including your skills. And if I may, I'd like to share a format that works really well
That'd
for
be great.
that, or
That'd be
formula,
great.
probably more than a format, a formula. And it is what you do, who you do it for, and the results that they can expect.
So let's go further again. What
Sure.
you do,
What you do, who you do it for, so that's your audience or your target market, and the results that they can expect. So what is the benefit of them working with you? And if you
Yes.
can cover those three things in your headline, then you're again going to be 95% better than a lot of other people who are on LinkedIn who don't
Okay.
understand that that's important.
Okay. Sidebar real quick, because I want to deeper dive on this. And that is that the headline used to be called the professional headline. It's now called headline. It's the first thing that people get to see aside from a profile shot. And there are some guidelines around profile shots, but it's the headline. It's the first grab.
That's right, and it follows you around LinkedIn, Greg,
Mm,
too. And people don't remember that, well, tend to forget it. So if you're commenting on somebody's post, or you're showing up in somebody's news feed somewhere, or if you're inviting someone to connect, people will always see that. So it's
yes.
important to get that right.
Yes. So can I ask you then, just I'm going to put you on the spot here, for somebody who is going to have a portfolio of jobs, okay, taking that model, how would you give somebody some tip on that? What would a headline look like that would be compelling enough for people to then say, that's the person I'd like to be able to engage with more so
Sure.
for a
Well, I think
portfolio?
that, sure, for a portfolio, I would suggest saying along the lines, and this won't be exact, but I help the kind of people that they are talking going to be working with to achieve whatever it might be. It's sort of higher turnover or lower
Cost
shortages.
base? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. By delivering coaching services or training services or one-to-one or through a different kind of a method. So you can always include a method there. If you do one-to-one coaching, for example, that you can talk about that in your headline as well. So if you're working on the theory of what it is that you do, the word help is a really good one to use. So
Mhm.
helping, for example, helping small businesses achieve greater success through the provision of accountancy services. That's pretty boring, isn't it? But through financial services advice or something along those lines, so that people can see what it is specifically, because you want people to be able to understand when they've read your profile exactly what it is that you do. And an awful lot of people tend not to do that. But a headline's not a bad place to have a bit of personality either, Greg. I know someone who's got something on a little phrase on theirs that says lover of fast cars. And not your average accountant. So there's room for a bit of humour as well in your profile headline, so that people get a bit of a sense of who you are. Because as you've already pointed out, your photo and the headline are the first things that people are going to see. And that's what
Yes.
they're going to make an instant judgment on, like it or not. Rights or
Yes.
wrongs, that's what tends to happen. So the
Yes.
word help is always a really good one to include in your headline.
Yes, and it's not swipe left or swipe right. It's scroll up or scroll down with the link with LinkedIn. But that's actually that's very helpful. What about a pivot? If somebody actually wants to pivot from one profession into something else, have you got to? Could you
What about
help?
the word aspiring for that? So, well, say they're wanting to move into finance from, I'm not
Mhm.
quite sure, say from law. That's a ridiculous example, but anyway. So, an aspiring financial consultant aiming to assist small businesses to save money or to increase wealth. So you're talking about, it's aspirational. Then it's something that
Yes.
you're going to be doing, not something that you're currently doing. And I think that there is an argument that says that if you're wanting to make a move like that, that you should be looking to the future rather than concentrating on what you do now, which is what we tend to do with a CV or resume. We don't tend to put in it that you're looking for something in a new field and this is what you can offer. And I think
Yes.
that by explaining what it is that you can offer, that then puts you in the frame for somebody who is looking for someone with those skills, even if they're not currently in the industry, given that a lot of recruiters also work on the search function. And so they'll have targeted keywords they're looking for. So if you were to say you were an aspiring business advisor, for example, then the words business advisor will come up in the search. Whereas if you said, well, I'm currently doing something else, then you're not going to get the
Yes.
search result that you're
Yes.
looking for. So I
And
don't see any reason why you can't be aspiring.
well, I think it's a lovely phrase as well. Um, and so the main thing is that last part that you talked about also being the key words. And when I'm coaching people on LinkedIn, and my coaching is much more our modules on LinkedIn are much more around career move and traditional perspective, getting the foundations right on LinkedIn in order to be able to get what we call a magnetic LinkedIn profile. I know you use the term compelling, so we're on similar page in terms of that. But what I wanted to be able to actually say was that the keywords are the most important thing, and we believe in the same way that when you're typing into Google to see to see a movie at a cinema near you, Google is smart enough to work out how to throw back through its algorithms the right results. And LinkedIn, I believe, is becoming a lot smarter this way as well. Would you
Yes,
agree?
absolutely. The search engine is amazing, and it never ceases to surprise me how well it knows where you are. And it will often throw up people that they think you want to connect with who might be where you are locally, and how it knows that. I really, sometimes it really surprises me, but it always surprises me who shows up wanting to connect on LinkedIn. That's again how amazing it is, because with 700 million members worldwide, there's a good database there. In fact, I think
Huge.
that anybody who's in business needs to be on LinkedIn. I have for a long time, and think it's a really wasted opportunity if you're not there and doing it well.
Absolutely. So we're going to move away from the basics of LinkedIn, but you've deep dived more so around some of those basics. Let's get into that and a nice overview of your book, Linkability, 4 Powerful Strategies to Maximize Your LinkedIn Success. And as I'm looking at your book here, in the contents, I can see that there are 5 chapters, but there are those four key strategies: connecting, publishing, engaging, and direct messaging. And I just thought if what we could do is we could get an overview of each of those. And if anybody wants to find out anything more, they should really get this fabulous book, and it really is fabulous. But what do we mean by connecting? I know we started to talk a little bit about
We
that
did talk
earlier.
about a little bit about that at the beginning, didn't we? And so connecting is all about developing relationships with people that you might want to do business with, because we all do business with people we know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to develop those relationships on LinkedIn, particularly in a COVID and hopefully post-COVID era, is equally important as developing those relationships with people in person and going to networking events. And the techniques are slightly different, of course, and it's still, though, about developing trust with people. And also, I feel about showing up as a professional, and about making sure that you give and share useful quality information, which we'll talk about a bit more in a minute, I'm sure. But being a person, Greg, and showing that you are real for a start, because that's one of the good things about LinkedIn compared to some of the other social media platforms. You are who you say on your profile. And it's very rare, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, to find fake profiles, people who aren't who they say they are. And if you're in a business environment, then you are who you say you are, and what you say on your profile is a really good representation of that. And so by connecting to the right people and developing those relationships, you can develop a network of people that you can collaborate with, who you can partner with, who you can discuss business opportunities, who you can discuss business problems with, like having, a Zoom over a beer or something on a Friday, the way we used used to go to the pub. And so I think that connecting is really one of the important things about LinkedIn. It's the reason that I started the book with that particular aspect of that particular strategy, because who you're connected to says a lot about you.
Yes, yeah, it's actually a very good point. Let's get into that second strategy, and that second strategy is publishing, the power of posting content on LinkedIn. Let's have an overview of that.
Sure. So there's 7 different ways that you can post content on LinkedIn, and it's your own personal publishing platform. You have a voice. It's a level playing field, Greg. You don't have to pay big money to anybody to be able to be seen and heard on LinkedIn in the publishing area, which is one of the things that I particularly like about it. And if you are a writer like me, you can write articles or text posts. If you're someone who's more at home with video, then you can put up video. If you're an artist or a designer, you're able to put up images. Now, there are so many different ways that you can share content on LinkedIn that it's often overlooked by people because of it. They don't see the value in it often. But if you are transitioning into a new role, or you're wanting to be promoted in your current company, or you're looking to do something completely different, then talking about and sharing information about your knowledge and your experience and your skills is a good way to do that, particularly if you've got an audience of people who are interested in what you have to say. And so I believe that sharing content on a regular, consistent basis that is unique to you. So in other words, you've prepared it, you've written it or videoed it. It's not something necessarily that you have shared from somewhere else, really shows you in a good light. And it demonstrates to people that you are wanting to work with, that you know your stuff, that you are an expert in your field, and it helps you develop both credibility and visibility.
Okay, fantastic. And if people want to get a deeper understanding again, I can see there are 60 plus pages just in that section alone.
It
I'm going
was
to
the
get to,
biggest one, the biggest chapter, yes.
so the next one, the next key strategy is engaging, the low key but effective way to be noticed.
So when a connection of yours posts content that you have an opinion on, or that you might want to add to, engaging on that post does several things. It tells them that you are interested in them and what they're doing. So in other words, you are a good connection or a good follower or a good person to have in their network. It also, because your headline and your photo follow you around LinkedIn, it also means that other people who are reading that post, possibly your second degree connections, will see your headline, and they will see your photo, and they will see the words that you have written. And so it's an excellent way to get noticed by other people as well. And that again increases your visibility. So engaging on other people's content is a key strategy, and it's relatively low risk because you're not putting out lots of information about your own opinion. You can do it in a small way that you can feel comfortable with. But also, it doesn't take a lot of time. It might only take you 10 or 15 minutes a day to be able to write half a dozen comments on different people's posts. Now, you do that regularly enough on a connections activity, and they will start to take notice of you. And if you're looking to transition or pivot or wanting to be promoted, then that's what you want. You want the right people to take notice of the fact that you are there and that you share really good information with people.
Okay, that's a fantastic summary of the intent of engaging. And then the last of the strategies is direct messaging, building strong relationships.
I'm a great believer, although I'm in the minority, Greg, on this one, that LinkedIn direct messaging is more effective than sending emails. I don't know about you, but my email inbox just gets flooded with messages that I just go delete, 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 delete. But if I send a direct message to somebody, I am more often than not going to get a response from them, particularly if it's personalized. So my messages don't say just hi or anything that doesn't identify you personally. It will always say, hi, Greg, or hope things are well with you, Greg, so that people know that this is being personalized to you. It's really important, I think, when you're direct messaging people, not to look like you're spamming. So again, it comes back to, if you're going to be sending people information, you want it to be useful. You don't want to be sending them sales information. And particularly, you don't want to be doing that the moment you've connected with someone. That's a surefire way to find yourself getting unconnected and blocked. So make sure that what you are going to be sending people is really helpful, useful information, and that they see it that way. It's like any kind of relationship that you're developing. It can take time. Some people will be interested in talking with you. Other people really won't want to be bothered. But the people that you want to connect with and want to be able to develop a relationship with are more likely than not to be responsive if you approach it in the right way. Now, nothing's foolproof. Nothing is online or in any kind of marketing, really. But if you do it in the right, if you do it in the way that you would like to be approached, then I think you're on the right track with your messaging.
And I think you're absolutely right there. Let me say I'm in your camp about direct messaging. My experience is if I email, the likelihood of a response is probably in the single digits. Say out of 100, percentage-wise, it'd be very low single digits, like less than 10%. Maybe close to 2, 3, 4% if I'm lucky. But if I direct message, it's about a 7, 8, or 9 out of 10 chance. As long as, and you made a very good point there, Linnea, and that is, as long as you're not spamming or overtly selling. There's a certain point in time when something like that's appropriate, but not to come in real hard. And using your analogy, and that is that if you turn up to a party and you meet somebody and you say, tell me about you, and suddenly you get the sales pitch, the hairs in the back of your neck start to raise, and you know you want to leave real fast. And it's a similar thing with LinkedIn, and that is that you've just got to take it in a sensible human-to-human basis. But I have found, to your point, direct messaging really working very, very well. So these are the 4 main areas that there's huge leverage potential. And what I commend you about this book is how practical it is. And if I can share with you, when I wrote that book, advising people about the importance of connecting in a particular way, how you do that takes what I've written and more deeply dives in some techniques. So I would certainly encourage that, but how this works is really a wonderful way to say, this is the structure of networking. This is what your connections look like. This is to reach out. But if you really want to master the how, that's what this book's all about. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. Let me ask you, Linnea, there's so much more we could talk about, and I may actually want to encourage that what we do is we deep dive into another podcast another time.
I'd love to.
Another time. Yeah, be really great, because certainly there's a lot here. And as I flick through the book that I've had a nice overview look at, there's gold in here. I will share with you that somebody actually said to me, if you know how to link, well, they actually shared with me in a mutual connection of ours, said they get over 50% of their new work comes from using LinkedIn in the right way. And that's amazing. That absolutely blew my mind. And I'm sure that as LinkedIn becomes more and more sophisticated, that there'll be so much more opportunity. And I'm sure, like with anything else, most people don't know really a lot. They're only at the tip of the iceberg. But when they get linkability, they're going to go beyond the tip of the iceberg to a deeper level within their skill set. So
And they'll
so
stand out from other people too, Greg. I
they
think
really
that's the
will.
real key, is that they'll be, by using those strategies, they'll be miles ahead of their competition, because a lot of, as you just said, a lot of people just don't use LinkedIn that well at all.
Yes.
So if you want to stand out, using your book and then mine, I think is a great way to do that.
So let me just ask, if people want to get this book, how do they do that?
They can buy it anywhere on the online bookstores, including Amazon. Of course, every good book is available on Amazon, isn't it? I have it available in printed copies, as you are so kindly holding up. I have it as an ebook, and people can also have an audio copy of it if they wish to do so. It's also on Audible and, again, all the online audio retailers, book retailers. So it's available everywhere that people want to find it.
Fantastic. So Linaire is, she writes beautifully. That's part of her skill, as well as through Word Wizard. Linaire, it's been wonderful spending some time with you today as New Zealand's #1 LinkedIn expert. Clearly, our interactions today have helped to deeper dive in some areas. I'd love to have you back again to connect more deeply on some of these main strategies. We might deeper dive in one next time or otherwise, but I just want to thank you very much for your time. This was absolutely rich, full of content, and I can hardly wait to apply a lot of what you actually said to my own profile and to those that I help to support. So thank you.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And if anyone is listening and wants to connect or follow me, please do. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to hear from people who've been involved or have heard a podcast and want to connect, because I do share a lot of information on LinkedIn as well. And thank you for publishing my book, publicizing my book. You're so kind to me, Greg. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to talk about LinkedIn all day, every day. And anytime you want me to come back, I'm really keen.
Lovely. Fantastic. Thank you for listening to the Start Strong, Finish Strong podcast. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share the podcast with your teams, and of course, we'd love you to leave a comment or review.